All right, everybody, welcome back to Salt City Counseling. If you're new here, my name is Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist here in the state of Utah. I mostly specialize in teens. I have a little bit of experience in a lot of things. I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to therapy, but I have my preferences. I really enjoy working with teenagers. I do a lot of parenting work, do a lot of family work. So a lot of people hit me up for that. A lot of people seek my services because I involve the whole family and create a family system that works well, one that operates well so that there's less fighting, less power struggling. And one thing that, well, here in my neck of the woods, okay, in this video, I am going to talk about how to survive online school with your kids and maybe some tips and tricks from someone who I've got a lot of background in behavior modification. Just different, there's different behavior modification techniques. I'll get into that in a second, but obviously you can help me out by subscribing, and sharing and all that stuff. If you like my content, you can hit the tip jar. I'm taking viewer questions. My email address is in the description below. Also check out my other channel, Wisdom and Brews, where I talk about spirituality and personal empowerment. And let's get into this because today, at least in my state, in my local area, today is the first day of actual school. Today's the first day of school. Now, there are multiple school districts in this general area, and each one of them sort of got their own little thing going. And frankly, it's going to be a disaster. I'm absolutely sure of it. It's going to be an absolute disaster. And unfortunately, our kids tend to be the ones that suffer the most. When adults stampede, kids are the ones that get trampled, man. This whole COVID thing is, and kids have very specific psychological needs. And it's very important for them to go to school, interact, socialize, have an interactive classroom, interactive learning, have a schedule, having one of the things that school does that's good is having a schedule. It creates structure. Kids don't necessarily like structure, but it's actually good for them. They tend to thrive when it comes to structure. But I know that there are a lot of parents who, A, are forced to do online school. Maybe B, there are parents who choose to do online school. C, there are some kids who are doing like a combination. Like I know around here some kids are doing 2 days at school and 2 days not at school, whatever, or something like that. 2 days at school, 3 days at not at school online, and parents are ill-equipped to do online school with their kids. They're generally not well versed in the curriculum and are able to teach the kids the things that, like, if kids have questions, obviously they're going to ask their teacher via online, but the parents are often like, I don't know. Like, we don't actually use this stuff in real life. We might be in need of some sort of education reform around here. Just like a lot of this stuff kids don't actually use in life. But here are some of my quick tips and tricks to maybe helping parents survive online school. Okay, number one is provide incentives. Okay, now the way, if it was me, and especially if I had a kid who was younger, maybe 10, like I have a client who has a 10-year-old son, and trying to do online school with him is apparently just been very, very challenging. As well as should be. 10-year-olds are not equipped for this, psychologically equipped for this. It was like, we don't try to get a monkey to change the oil in your car. It's too challenging. It's just there's too many obstacles. There's too many barriers. It's too complex. It's too abstract. But you kind of get my point here. Okay, but if it was me, this is what I would do. I would create a token program. Okay, and each day I would basically have a quick checklist of maybe 3 or 4 expectations that I had for the kid. One is to be up at a certain time. 2 would be to complete X amount of time online, and C would be, I don't know, something else where all assignments are done or something like that. Okay, and this way, and then with each objective, I would give them a token. Like if you have 4 objectives that you want them to complete, I would give them a token for each one. And if they got all 4 in that day, I would give them a bonus token, okay? You complete all 4, you get a 5th, okay? This is behavior modification 101, guys. And so once they have tokens saved up, they can trade in the tokens for different rewards or different incentives, right? They could do, they could trade in tokens for maybe an extra treat, maybe extra screen time, maybe extra video game time, maybe a later curfew. Maybe they choose, maybe they get to choose where you go for dinner. The family goes for dinner if they get that many tokens. Whatever. Maybe they get something on the weekend, okay, if they've earned enough tokens. Okay, and if it's a big thing, then you want them to earn a lot of tokens. That's good, and hopefully they do it, right? So the idea here is that the ideal situation is for kids to motivate themselves to do it. Now, this is where a lot of parents will say, well, what if they don't? Well, first of all, we can't make them do, you have to stay with it. If you power struggle with them, the more you power struggle with them, the more it's going to be a lose-lose. What happens too often is that parents get in the mode of just punishing. I'm just going to use punitive measures. And then the kids start to get a really negative association to school, and they hate it. And they cut more and more corners. There's lots and lots of ways to increase their incentives, okay? Also, give them some autonomy. Give them choices. Okay, you can either do X amount of hours. If you start early, you only have to do 2 hours initially. Or if you start late, then you have to do 4 hours initially, or something like that. What you want to do, yeah, my phone. Sorry. Well, what you want to do is give them as many choices as possible. Do you want to start with your math, or do you want to start with your science? Give them choices. If you give them choices and you want to give them autonomy, then they will feel more like they're in control, and you're going to have less power struggling. Okay, you may want to set a timer and just say, hey, I'm going to set a timer. You're doing math. You got 30 minutes or whatever to do your math. If you do it, then you get this particular incentive, okay? And this type of stuff generally works for younger kids. Now, the older kids can be a little bit more of a struggle, but you definitely want to as many choices, and you want to give them as much autonomy as possible. You want to also focus on the positive behaviors, okay? And this is psychology 101. Like, let's say that this mug is maybe this full of coffee, and what we tend, and instead of focusing on, wow, I got this much, we have a tendency to be like, oh, I'm missing this much. And this is how we approach kids. This is how we approach, if they do this much, we tend to go, well, you're still missing this much. Okay, this is not, it doesn't work. Doing this doesn't work. This dynamic, we're adults, and almost none of us go to our jobs and give 100% every single time, every single day. We can't expect our kids to do something that we don't do in our own lives, okay? So with older kids, give them autonomy, and also focus on what they did well that day. Good job. Hey, you're doing a great job. You want to validate them. You want to give them the positives, okay? And quite frankly, at some point, you also have to be willing to let them fail and have some consequences from that. I think too many parents take it really personally when their kids fail. They take it as a thing where they feel like they have failed as a parent. Now, think about that. If your kid does poorly in school and you think I failed as a parent, aren't you making it about you? It's not about you. It's about them, okay? We want them to succeed, but we want them to, the ideal situation is for them to self-motivate with school, okay? My last tip for online school is to give them breaks and try to include some physical movement in that, okay? At school, kids between each class, right? They're up, they're moving, they're moving through the hallways, they're interacting, they're seeing their peers, they're seeing their friends, they're joking, they're laughing, okay? Kids like that. It's good for them. It's psychologically good for them. And it's hard to simulate that at home. In fact, it's kind of almost impossible, but maybe get them moving. Every 45 minutes or so, we're going to, I want you to go outside and do a couple of laps or jump on the trampoline for 10 minutes or whatever the case may be. And that way it will help them break it down into sizable chunks. Because, school's a bummer. Kids generally dislike school because of how long they're required to sit still and remain silent, right, for the most part. But what's interesting is, and all the kids that I've talked to, like, how do you feel about going back to school? And every single one of them just about is like, I never thought I'd say this, but I can't wait to go back to school. Okay, so those are some of my quick tips and tricks to help you survive online school if that is your jive right now. So good luck with that. See you next time.